So today we talk about stability training. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because improving stability and training stability specifically can do one of two things. It can either greatly limit and handicap your ability to build muscle and strength, maybe even make you weaker, or it can potentially throw open the floodgates and make it possible to build so much more strength and muscle than you currently have. To understand how stability training can both help or hurt your gains, it helps, as always, to break things down onto the fundamental principles of fitness. And what we learn when we go to the fundamental lessons that we get from training is that the actual exercises and stuff you do aren't really that important. Like, should you do calisthenics or weight machines? Should you do dumbbells versus kettlebells? It really isn't that important, because the exercises you do and the workout you do and the tools you use aren't actually what directly create a stimulus in your training that tells your body to change. What does create that stimulus is when your brain is asking your body to function at a higher level in a challenge state, or simply put, as I've always said, you gain that which you challenge. Now, every exercise and every movement pattern that we ever do is made up of a series of functional ingredients. Like, everything you do, from ping pong to powerlifting, requires strength endurance and stability and cardiovascular endurance, and on and on and on. A lot of different functional ingredients or functional characteristics. Now, when we do these things, we can perform the activity as long as we can have all of those ingredients intact, as long as they're all there, so to speak. Like, we have a number of ingredients, we're trying to bake cookies, but as soon as we run out of eggs, you're not making cookies anymore. So as long as I've got enough strength endurance and enough stability and enough cardiovascular endurance, I can continue to do that exercise in that scenario. But different exercises require different challenges depending on how they're programmed. So for example, we could do push-ups on a countertop. And so they're very stable. They may not require that much strength, so we can do very well. And we can do a lot of them, so strength endurance isn't that high. And we can also have not a big cardiovascular demand, so that's really high. So we can do this exercise pretty easily as we continue performing it. We're not running into any sort of a limitation. But because we may not be running into a limitation, there's not really any stimulus to change. But if we change something about the push-ups, let's say we do them on the floor, okay, now we're putting more weight on our hands, so the ability to do it for strength and endurance decreases, right? And there may be a little bit more of a cardiovascular demand, not much, but that's still there. And stability, it's about the same, maybe a little bit decreased. So then when we start doing the exercise, we're more likely to run into a limitation, and we run into that limitation of, let's say, strength, for example. Okay, that's the thing that is stimulating a change in our body. We do the exercise and it's saying, I don't have enough strength to do that exercise in this way, therefore it's an effective strength exercise. But if you were stronger, for example, and you're like, I've got plenty of strength, plenty of that, you would do the exercise and still be able to do it pretty proficiently, and there wouldn't be much of a stimulus. So this is how we can program our exercises to stimulate different adaptations in the body. So getting back to stability training, if we're doing an exercise that severely limits your ability to stabilize during the exercise, then your practice of the exercise will be proficient until you hit that limitation. So I'm standing on one leg on a Bosu Ball doing overhead presses, right? A lot of instability that. So I can only do that exercise because the stability is the great limiting functional factor. Once I hit that, I can't do that anymore. So my ability to challenge strength, cardiovascular endurance, muscular endurance and stuff, I'm not even close to those limitations. So of course, I'm not going to create much of a stimulus to develop those functional qualities. I'm always here. But if I'm using something that inherently limits my stability so much that even if I double my stability, it's still going to be relatively limited, I'm never going to be able to fully test those other qualities, therefore develop those attributes from that type of training. And that's why most of the stability exercises in grind style calisthenics are all about developing stability in those more proximal joints. The T planks, for example, I'm using my lats, my scaps, my traps, everything for shoulder as well as hip stability. You know, shifting squats, you see me do this all the time, shifting squats and lunges. I'm building stability in my hips, so that way when I'm doing my leg training, it's not nearly as much of a limiting factor for developing the ability to contract and use the muscles in my chest, back, arms, shoulders, and legs. But in contrast, using something like this Bosu Ball, I'm not trying to stabilize in my hips, in those proximal joints. I'm creating more instability at my more distal joints, particularly in my ankle. I'm not going to be able to do this with nearly as much weight in my hands. I'm not going to be able to do this for as many repetitions. So I've turned this exercise into a, quote, weaker exercise from a muscular work capacity standpoint, and I made it more of a stability exercise. So the real lesson in this video isn't just that, yes, stability can be a gateway to more strength and muscle if you know how to program it. It's bigger than that. It's about programming and training in general, because you gain that which you challenge. And if you're doing your exercises, whatever they are, in such a way that you're not challenging the attributes that you want to develop, you're not going to be very good at developing them. Instead, look for methods or change the methods you're already using so they do challenge those methods. So if you're constantly being fully challenged by stability training and you're not really able to challenge your strength and muscular work capacity very much, don't be surprised that you end up actually a little bit weaker and smaller than before. But if you can twist it around a little bit, so it's like it's less of a stability exercise, and now I'm able to push my muscles harder, then you're probably going to get more of what you want. Hopefully that clears things up for you. Let me know if you have questions down below. Thanks very much for watching. Be fit and live free.